What's the next thing in the Wonderbox?
I suppose it's on a similar vibe, really. Something that takes me out of myself and out of language and out of being a human being is pets and animals.
Okay.
It's been a consistent part of my life since I was born. There's always been animals in the house.
So who are the Hall of Fame beasts?
Well, my first ever cat was called Albert the Burmese, but I've been through tortoises, stick insects, reptiles, everything. And when I first started doing stand up, and I was single, and I was working that. I mean, you knew me then. I was working a really tough day job all day.
I remember going
doing
to
gigs at
your
night.
flat, and you had those. I remember there being a cat in the flat
right.
that couldn't leave.
That's right. So even when I was working all day and all night as a stand-up, I still had a dog and 2 cats.
Yeah.
It's just insane looking back.
But it's just companionship, isn't it?
I think it's more than that. There's something. I suppose it links to dancing again, because you can get companionship from. I've got really good relationships with my friends, and I've been single for 9 months since I was 16, so I've always had a companion.
Yeah.
But an animal asks nothing from you verbally.
Yeah.
It can't. It's not interested in your shit. It's just a connection. It's alive, and there is a connection there.
And it's always year zero, unless you've told the dog off. There's always going to be that love. There's no kind of. They're not going to be like, well, someone's done a terrible thing.
Yeah, they're
always
match your energy basically. Yeah. I just could. It's just something I couldn't be without. Is a pet of some kind. In my first flat, before I did stand up, when I was just started working at an ad agency. They was like, no cats, no dogs. You had to sign it, and I was like, right.
What, at the office?
No, the flat. My first ever flat I rented.
Oh, I see.
No cats, no dogs. So I signed it and underlined it, and thought, right. Didn't say no pets, did it? So I went and bought a French lop rabbit, which is about this big.
Yeah. And
trained it to use a litter tray.
Right.
Called Barbara. Then I had a rabbit that lived. I mean, how did I ever meet women?
So
they would come back to mine. This is my pet rabbit called Barbara. I really like dancing. Do you mind if we talk about our feelings for half an hour before we have sex?
So do you? I know you've spoken about this, but do you think having all those animals was a place where you could be gentle? In a way that you grew up in a world where you weren't really allowed, you didn't nourish that.
Oh, that's a good question.
Tenderness.
No one's ever asked me that before. I'm not on a conscious level. I've never thought about that.
No, I'm not thinking about it like that. But I just wonder about the very fact that you were like having a rabbit. But I imagine stroking a rabbit is very meditative and
I'm
calming.
Just programmed. I know it probably doesn't come across at all in anything I do on stage, but I am a nurturer and a lover with a small L. I'm always the one who's, if I've got a friend who's like, oh, I've lost my job, I feel suicide, I'm like, right, here's the action plan, this is what we can do, don't worry, we've got you, mate. I'm one of those. The question is it some sort of proxy because my dad was such a knuckle dragger? Maybe it's a good excuse to be more soppy. An animal is like a license to be cuddly and soppy, isn't it? Maybe it is a bit of that. But my dad had this weird. You just like broken a memory. Maybe I should talk about it in my stand-up. So my dad was this like, day's going to be shit, life's going to be shit. 3 sets of 10, protein boy, BNP manifesto in one hand, Poppadom in the other. I'll tell you what's wrong with this country. More mint sauce, please, Abdul. And yet once when we were driving a lot, if we ever hit a bird, he would get out and cradle it while it died, like crying, like you know, like Lenny from Mice and Men.
Yeah.
So he had these weird.
But I wonder if that is what it is that you can have all of that, but a dog doesn't, recognise that. It will just wander up to your dad with a little waggy tail.
Yeah.
And you can't help but be melted by that.
True. Maybe it's that.
There's instantly like, I must look after that.
Yeah, I've got a new puppy at the moment, a Chihuahua. My wife and daughter bullied me.
Oh, really?
A Chihuahua called Brian. Because I've turned this into. It sounds like this is one elaborate plug now. It isn't, but it's something I've always wanted to write about. Is my love of animals and all that, and I'm like, that doesn't really fit with saying into a microphone. But then when we in lockdown, we were getting another cat, a rag doll, and my daughter was like, "What's a rag doll like, Daddy?" So I would get the books. And you get these rather dry descriptions of a Bichon Frise or a Cavalier King Spaniel or a poodle. So instead of reading out the description of a poodle, I would go, "Have you got a mate who blah blah blah?" And my daughter would be crying, laughing. I thought, there's a gap there. A pet breed guide for children.
Yes.
So I've written this book called Pet Selector. It's the most. I've done so many fun, amazing things, but that was so much fun. I just looked up the top 20 breeds of cat, top 20 breeds of dog in the UK and US. That was as far as my research went. Learned about the breeds and then just translated the descriptions into funny. It was like a translation job. Like a white label translation job. It's won an award already. It's been selected, something called the Library Guild Gold Award, which means it's going to be featured in a lot of libraries because I wish this had been my intention, but it turns out that educating children about picking the right breed to match their household leads to less rehoming. So I can now pretend that's why I did it, of course. But
what is the book? Who's it for? What age?
It's for 7 to 11-year-olds.
Okay.
It's called Pet Selector.
Yeah.
I have a little section at the back for people that are allergic or can't have cats or dogs and all that shit. I've done like reptiles, rabbits, things like that.
Is there an animal that you look at that you think, I'd love to have that as a pet, but you haven't yet?
No, I've always gone. I've always gone and got the pet that
a horse. You've had a horse?
I want one.
You don't want one?
I've never looked at a horse and wanted one.
Shetland pony?
Okay, yeah, you're right. Goat. I would love a goat.
I wouldn't mind. My friend Brian had a goat because he was lactose intolerant. Someone killed it. He came in one day and went, "Someone's killed my goat."
Hang on, is your mate a druid?
No.
The harvest was amazing, though.
Exactly. Suddenly we're like, I tell you what, there's blueberries everywhere. It's my wife's like that. She likes the idea of loads of pets sort of running free.
What have you got?
I'm a dog man. We've got one dog called Fred, and before that we had a Jack Russell called Arch.
Cats. People don't understand.
Never had a cat. My wife had cats.
People don't understand cats. They don't understand them. The Burmese. Listen, I'm bipedal, right?
Okay.
I have dogs and cats. I couldn't choose. I promise you, what I get from my Burmese cat Terry is probably more than what I get from my dog.
Oh, that's interesting. Why is that? Because the stereotype of a cat is that they don't really need you. They don't give a shit, whereas dogs need you to the core.
That's how a dog would be if you didn't bother raising it right. So people get cats and just sling them into the garden.
Right.
So you do that with a dog as an experiment. Don't. But if you did, you'd probably find you'd have a dog that didn't give a shit about you as well.
I remember having a really tender conversation with a dog we had when we were kids called Bonnie. When I was just, when you're in that sort of period of, is this going to work? Is stand-up going to be a thing? And I was explaining to her, it was like 2 a.m. I got back from some gig in like Lincoln.
Dildo mark on the face.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going, I'm making 80 quid a week. I'm not sure this is going to work, Bonnie. I don't know. And she sort of looked at me and we sort of had this, I was able to have this conversation, but I was clearly terrified and I had no one to speak to. But a dog, it'd be so interesting if we ever have a machine where dogs can talk.
Bonnie said, "Believe in yourself."
Yeah, but it was that weird thing of like, that's what they sometimes do. They don't speak back to you. You could just let go of all your problems.